Hey, it's Medium Jenny Lam here with the next Raw discussion video. We're on session 41, which means this is video number 42. All right. Dawn has a question of logistics. I know it's a dumb question, but there's a possibility we may have to move from this location to a location 1,000 or more miles from here in the future. Will this have any effect on our contact with Ra? So this is like them personally. Dawn, Carla, and Jim might have to move. Ra says, this is not a foolish question. The location is meaningless, for are we not in the creation? However, the place of the working shall be either carefully adjudged by yourselves or to be of the appropriate vibratory levels, or it shall be suggested that the purification of the place be enacted and dedication made through meditation before initial working. This might entail such seemingly mundane chores as the cleansing or painting of surfaces which you deem to be inappropriately marred. So place doesn't matter, but it must feel right to them to be able to do the work that they need to do. I'm familiar with the banishing ritual of the Lesser Pentagram. I was just wondering if this ritual was of use in preparing a place for this type of working. So an explanation of the banishing ritual can be found in various Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn works, including as an appendix of W.E. Butler's book, The Magician, His Training, and His Work. I had tried to look this banishing ritual up, and I couldn't really find any good information about it. So if you know anything about it, put it in the comments. Then generally what you're saying is, even if we moved over 1,000 miles away, if we carefully prepared a place that we found, even though it had been used by others, it could be made satisfactory. Is this correct? Yes. Moving along. In trying to build an understanding from the start, starting with intelligent infinity and getting to our present condition of being, I'm having some difficulty. You don't say. I think we should go back and investigate our sun, since it is the sub-logos that creates all that we experience in this particular planetary system. Can you give us a description of the sun, our sun? This is a query which is not easily answered in your language, for the sun has various aspects in relation to intelligent infinity, to intelligent energy, and to each density of each planet, as you call these spheres. Moreover, these differences extend into the metaphysical or time-space part of your creation. In relationship to intelligent infinity, the sun body is equally with all parts of the infinite creation part of that infinity. In relation to the potentiated intelligent infinity, which makes use of intelligent energy, it is the offspring of the logos of a much larger number of sub-logi. The relationship is hierarchical in that the sub-logos uses the intelligent infinity in ways set forth by the logos and uses its free will to co-create the full nuances of your densities as you experience them. This is saying that the sun has free will. We think of the sun as like this now, in this part of our time-space continuum, we think of the sun scientifically, but it's this big giant ball of gas. That's not a being, but a thing. Like a rock. You know? But I think the ancient peoples had stuff way more right than we do sometimes, apparently, because this is saying the sun is a being, and the rocks have intelligent infinity too, which a lot of ancient cultures worship the sun as their god. It might be one of the earliest kinds of religions, sun worship. And here Ra is saying that yes, it's in some ways is because it's part of the way that our solar system works, because it was given the opportunity to help co-create everything we experience as little tiny earthlings, which makes the sun seem even more impressive than it already was. Okay, let's keep going. In relationship to the densities, the sun body may physically be seen to be a large body of gaseous elements undergoing the process of fusion and radiating heat and light. That's what we were just saying. Metaphysically, the sun achieves a meaning to 4th through 7th density according to the growing abilities of entities in these densities to grasp the living creation and co-entity or other self-nature of the sun body. Thus, by the 6th density, the sun may be visited and inhabited by those dwelling in time-space. It may even be partially created from moment to moment by the processes of 6th density entities in their evolution. So, I've read about entities living in star systems, not as like having a physical body like we know it, but like going to the star Sirius or going to the star Arcturus, which they're, this Sirius is a star. Isn't Arcturus a star? I'm not getting them confused with constellations, am I? And they can exist there to accomplish certain things, experience certain things, and move up the ladder, so to say. I had read about that a couple years ago. So this is backing that up, that even our sun is a place where 6th density entities can go and dwell and may even be partially created from moment to moment by the process of 6th density entities. So they can help co-create. It's kind of what it sounds like with our sun. Because, if you don't have a body that's going to burn up to charcoal when you get there, you could do stuff like that. Okay, let's go. Let's keep going. In your last statement, did you mean that 6th density entities are actually creating the manifestation of the sun in their density? Can you explain what you mean by that? Yes, please, Ra, please. In this density, some entities whose means of reproduction is fusion may choose to perform this portion of experience as part of the beingness of the sun body. So the reproduction and the sixth density is fusion. Because remember, we're made up of light. We're made up of light, people. So they can go do this as part of the sun's experience, as part of the sun's processes. Thus, you may think of portions of the light that you receive as offspring of the generative expression of 6th density love. What in the ever-living hell? 6th density entities can go up there to the sun and have some sort of I'm trying not to be inappropriate here, but it's funny to think about. And now that I've said it, your mind will also be in the gutter. They're having reproductive experiences through fusion, and then they're spreading their offspring onto us from above. As light, people. As light. Don't be disgusting. It's just, I mean, if you really think about it, if all we are is light, and in the sixth density we're light, and in order to create more light you have to do a fusion reaction to make more light, it's just science. But it's still weird. Then could you say that sixth density entities are using that mechanism to be more closely co-creators of the infinite creator? Thank you, Dawn, for not having your mind in the gutter like I did. All right, this is precisely correct, as seen in the later portions of the sixth density, seeking the experiences of the gateway density. What I want to do now is investigate, as the first density is formed, what happens and how energy centers are first formed in beings. Does it make any sense to ask you if the sun itself has a density, or is it all densities? The sublogos is of the entire octave and is not that entity which experiences the learning teaching of entities such as yourselves. So it is all densities. When the first density is formed, I'm going to make a statement of my understanding, and then you can correct me. I intuitively see the first density being formed as an energy center that is a vortex. This vortex then causes these spinning motions that I have mentioned before of the light vibration, which is light, which then starts to condense into the materials of the first density. Is this correct? This is correct as far as your reasoning has taken you. However, it is well to point out that the Logos has the plan of all the densities of the octave in potential completion before entering the space-time continuum in first density. Thus, the energy centers exist before they manifest. So it's like the blueprint's already there. The game plan's already there. They know how it's going to work. They know that it's going to be this. And then, but yes, what Dawn said is correct. Then what is the simplest being that is manifested? I'm supposing it might be a single cell or something like that. And how does it function with respect to energy centers? The simplest manifest being is light, or what you call the photon. In relationship to energy centers, it may be seen to be the center or foundation of all articulated energy fields. The photon. The frickin' photon. When first density is formed, we have fire, air, earth, and water. There is, at some point, the first movement or individuation of life into a portion of consciousness that is self-mobile. Could you describe the process of that creation of this and what type of energy center it has? The first or red ray density, though attracted towards growth, is not in proper vibration of those conditions conducive to what you may call this spark of awareness. As the vibratory energies move from red to orange, the vibratory environment is such as to stimulate those chemical substances which lately had been inert, to combine in such a fashion that love and light begin the function of growth. The supposition which you have earlier made concerning single-celled entities such as the polymorphous dinoflagellate is correct. The mechanism is one of the attraction of upward spiraling light. There's nothing random about this or any portion of evolution. So I looked up what a polymorphous dinoflagellate is, and it's algae. It's a marine eukaryote, which is algae. Very interesting. And Ra's saying it's not random. It's like, that's the way it's supposed to work. The polymorphous dinoflagellate has an iron rather than copper-based cell. Could you comment on that? The information is not central. The base of any metabolism is that which may be found in the chemical substances of the neighborhood of its origin. You gotta use what you got, man. I was just commenting on this because it indicates that it has the motion of our animal life with copper-based cells, yet it has the iron-based cell of plant life, indicating a transition possibly from plant to animal life. Am I wrong? It is not that you are incorrect. There are no conclusions should be drawn from this information. There are several types of bases of conscious entities, not only upon this planetary sphere, but to a much greater extent the forms found in planetary spheres of other sublogi. The chemical vehicle is that which most conveniently houses the consciousness. The functioning of consciousness is the item of interest rather than the chemical makeup of the vehicle. But see, as humans, we get real caught up on this chemical makeup of the physical vehicle because for some people, they think that that's all that there is the body. We have observed that those whom you call scientists have puzzled over the various differences and possible interrelationships of various stages, types, and conditions of life form. This is not fruitful materialism, as it is that which is of a moment's choice by the sublogos. It's not the physical chemical makeup of the body that matters. It's what's making the body be what it is. The consciousness, the mind, and the spirit. But we get real caught up on that, you know. Scientists have puzzled over. And I feel like I've been trying to explain this to people for such a long time. Because, you know, most people are like, there can't be life on other planets because it doesn't have blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's only what you know here on Earth. Just because it's only what we have experienced doesn't mean that that's all that's possible. And then I had already thought about that. I had already figured that shit out. And then they discovered that there's creatures that can live at the hot air vents that come out of the bottom of the ocean where nothing should have existed because it doesn't exist, you know, nothing that we know of can exist in those temperatures, and nothing that we know of can exist in that acidity. And we found it in our own planet, at the bottom of our oceans, that there's lots of life there that shouldn't be there, you know? Like, come on, people. So, same thing. And Ra says it right here. This is not fruitful material as it is that of which is a moment's choice by the sublogos. Because it's just using what it has there. Where was the part about its neighborhood of stuff here? That was a good part too. It uses what it has. Where was that? Blah, 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 blah. I can't find it now. Oh, here it is. The base of any metabolism is that which may be found in the chemical substances of the neighborhood of origin. Life is going to use what it is available to make what it needs so that it can keep doing what it needs to do, regardless of what us human analytical, logical brain people have to try to figure out what's usable or not. Okay, I'm going to stop ranting now. Does this polymorphous dinoflagellate have an orange energy center? Correct. Is the energy center on a very small scale related to the orange energy center in man? True color is precisely the same. However, the consciousness of the second density being is primitive and the use of the orange ray limited to the self-expression of self which may be seen to be movement and survival. So it's using that orange ray just to move and to survive. In third density at this time, those clinging to orange ray may have more complex systems of distortion through which orange ray is manifested. This is somewhat complicated, and we shall endeavor to simplify. The appropriate true color of third density is yellow. However, the influences of the true color green acting upon yellow ray entities may have caused many entities to revert to the consideration of self rather than stepping forward into consideration of other self or green ray. I was wondering if this was supposed to say, however, the influence of the true orange acting upon the yellow. But there's no footnote or anything here about it. So I guess they didn't think that was of error. This may not be seen to be a negatively polarized nature, as the negatively polarized entity is working very intensely with the deepest manifestations of yellow group entities, especially the manipulations of others for service to self. Those reverting to orange ray, and we may add these are many upon your planet at this time, are those who feel the vibrations of true color green and therefore respond by rejecting governmental and societal actions, and as such seek once more the self. Oh. Okay. So perhaps it wasn't a mistake, and that's why I didn't write it down. So let's try to decompress this part right here, because it's a little confusing. Okay, so the negatively polarized entity is working very intensely with the deepest manifestations of the yellow ray group energies. Yellow is the solar plexus, is your will. Putting your will over others. You know, the whole slavery stuff and all that. Okay. Those reverting to orange ray, and there's a lot of them on the plane at this time, are those who feel the vibrations of true green and reject governmental and societal activities, but because they do that, they end up seeking the self. So there's some very complex things going on here, because if you realize that your society and your government is a bunch of horse shit, and that they're doing stuff to purposefully keep us enslaved so that we can never fully achieve any kind of growth or enlightenment because we're constantly having to work ourselves to death, then you pull away from it because you have reached the heart center where you realize that that is not acceptable, right? Love makes you realize that this is not acceptable. But in turning away from the societal structures, turning away from the governmental organization of society, we turn towards the self, which in some ways, see how messed up this is getting? In some ways is service to self. By rejecting others, you're serving yourself. Even if the others are completely messed up and doing terrible things. However, personal opinion, and I don't remember what the rest of this answer says, but personal opinion, by turning to yourself, figuring out what is best for others, and then turning back outward to help those others is reconnecting to that heart chakra, to that green energy. And then you can flip that stuff on its head and turn it back to service to others. But if you only reject and you don't figure out how to help fix it, then you absolutely are service to self. Which I can say personally, in my early 20s, that's definitely what I was doing. I realized that society was a mess and I didn't want to have any part of it. And because of that, I rejected it and I turned to self, which is only service to self if you're not helping other people. Let's keep going. However, not having developed the yellow ray properly so that it balances the personal vibratory rates of the entity then is faced with the task of further activation and balancing of the self in relation to the self. Thus, the orange ray manifestations at this space-time nexus. The true orange color is that which is without difference. However, the manifestations of this or any ray may be seen to be most various depending upon the vibratory levels and balances of the mind-body or mind-body-spirit complexes which are expressing these entities, these energies. Okay. Could you tell me the simplest and first entity to have both orange and yellow energy centers? Upon your planetary spheres, those having the first yellow ray experiences are those of animal and vegetable nature, which find the necessity of reproduction by bisexual techniques, or who find it necessary to depend in some way upon other cells for survival and growth. So remember, this just means like having to have a male and a female in order to reproduce, but also depending on others for survival and growth. And then what entity would be the simplest that would have red, orange, yellow, and green? This information has been covered in the previous sessions, 35.1. To perhaps simplify your asking, each center may be seen to be activated potentially in third density. The late second density entities having the capability, if efficient use is made of experience, of vibrating and activating the green ray energy center. The third density being having the potential for complete self-awareness, thus has the potential for the minimal activation of all energy centers. The fourth, fifth, and sixth densities are those refining the higher energy centers. The seventh density is a density of completion and the turning towards timelessness or foreverness. So we've kind of gone over all this stuff before, which, you know, Ra says we've gone over it before. Then would an animal in second density have all the energy centers in some way in its being but not activated? Precisely correct. Everything has all, like, it seems like everything has all the energy centers, they're just not necessarily activated, but the potential is there. The animal in second density is composed of light, as are all things. What I'm trying to get at is the relationship between the light that the various bodies of the animal are created of and the relationship of these energies, of this to the energy centers which are active and the ones which are not active, and how it's linked with the logos. The answer is to redirect your thought process from any mechanical view of evolution. The will of the logos posits the potentials available to the evolving entity. The will of the entity as it evolves is the single measure of the rate and fastidiousness of the activation and balancing of the various energy centers. It's all there. It's all there. It's just whether the individual pursues it. Okay. Yesterday's session, you mentioned variable speed of rotation or activation of energy centers. What did you mean by speed of rotation? Each energy center has a wide range of rotational speed, or you may see it more clearly in relation to color, brilliance. The more strongly the will of the entity concentrates upon and refines or purifies each energy center, the more brilliant or rotationally active each energy center will be. It is not necessary for the energy centers to be activated in order in the case of a self-aware entity. Thusly, entities may have extremely brilliant energy centers while being quite unbalanced in their violet ray aspect due to the lack of attention paid to the totality of experience of the entity. So you can have like a super, super bright green heart chakra, but other stuff can be completely unbalanced because you haven't paid attention to it. Makes sense. The key to balance may be seen in the unstudied, spontaneous, and honest response of entities toward experiences, thus using experience to the utmost, then applying the balancing exercises and achieving the proper attitude for the most purified spectrum of energy center manifestation in the violet ray. So really just having experiences, but then understanding, accepting, possibly forgiving those experiences so that you can balance out your energies. This is why the brilliance or rotational speed of the energy centers is not considered above the balanced aspect of the violet ray manifestation of an entity in regarding harvestability. For those entities which are unbalanced, especially as the primary rays, will not be capable of sustaining the impact of love and light of intelligent infinity to the extent necessary for harvest. So really, no matter what, no matter how brilliant one of the chakras or more is, it's got to be all together in that violet ray sum total energy center. What's the difference between space-time and time-space? Using your words, the difference is that between the visible and invisible, or the physical and metaphysical. Using mathematical terms, as does the one you call Larson, the difference is between ST and TS. We got to math terms here. Okay. But visible and invisible, physical and metaphysical, space-time and time-space. All right. Here's where Dawn asks about fasting again. Okay, you mentioned in the last session that fasting was a method of removing unwanted thought forms. Can you expand on this process and explain a little more about how this works? I knew he asked about it somewhere. This, as well as all healing techniques, must be used by a conscious being, that is, a conscious being that is ridding of excess and unwanted material from the body complex, is the analogy to the ridding of mind and spirit of excess or unwanted material. Thus, the one discipline or denial of the unwanted portion of an appropriate part of the self is taken through the tree of mind down to the trunk of the unconscious levels where the connection is made. And thus, the body, mind, and spirit then in unison express denial of the excess or unwanted spiritual or mental material as part of the entity. This session is like really long. Okay, we're getting there though. All then falls away in the entity while understanding, if you will, and appreciating the nature of the rejected material as part of the greater self. Nevertheless, through the action of will, purifies and refines the mind-body-spirit complex, bringing into manifestation the desired mind-body or spirit complex attitude. So what? Huh? So Dawn asks about fasting, which, like, we're thinking of fasting as not eating for a certain amount of time, right? And religions, lots of religions have fasting, specific fasting times. And Ross says this and all healing techniques, as long as you're conscious of what you're doing, are ways to get rid of unwanted things. And it can even be unwanted parts of your spirit or mind. And you can purify yourself by getting rid of these things. That makes sense. But how does it exactly connect to fasting? I mean, I guess if it's just looked at and considered as part of a healing modality, it's just one more way to do that. Then would this be like a conscious reprogramming of catalyst? For instance, for some entities, catalyst is programmed by the higher self to create experiences so that the entity can release itself from unwanted biases. Would this be an analogous then to the entity consciously programming this release and using fasting as a method of communication to itself? This is not only correct, but it may be taken further. The self is conscious to a great enough extent of the workings of this catalyst and the techniques of programming, may through concentration of the will and the faculty of faith alone cause reprogramming without the analogy of the fasting, the diet, or an analogous body complex disciplines. And then I wrote woo. Okay, why did I write that? The self is conscious to a great enough extent of the workings of this catalyst and the techniques of programming made through concentration of the will and the faculty of faith alone cause reprogramming without the analogy of the fasting, the diet, or other analogous body complex disciplines. So Ra is saying that if you concentrate your will and you have total faith in the process, that you can get rid of this stuff without having to do anything physically. You don't have to fast. Fasting doesn't have to take place if your will and your faith are strong enough. Okay. I got that. And now I see why I wrote woo. I have a book, Initiation, in which a woman describes initiation. Are you familiar with the contents of this book? Yep, they just, Ra's sitting around reading it. Now, they scanned on, this is correct, we scan your mind. Okay, so the book Initiation is by Elizabeth Heish. It's an autobiography of a teacher, Elizabeth Heish, and lucid memories of initiation into a mystical teaching of priesthood of ancient Egypt. Talks about karma, reincarnation, and spiritual development. So Jim read the whole book. Dawn's only read a little bit of it. And they were wondering if the teaching in this book with respect to balancing were your teachings, Ra's teachings. This is basically correct with distortions that may be seen when this material is correlated with the material we have offered. Collated? The material we have offered. Okay, so comparing the two, I guess, is what they're saying. Why are the red, yellow, and blue energy centers called primary centers? Oh, I love when we get to the color stuff. But is there some, okay, some tracing of these primary colors back to the intelligent infinity? This is more profound than what you have given us. We cannot say what may seem profound to an entity. The red, yellow, and blue rays are primary because they signify activity of a primary nature. Okay, a little art teacher lesson here. Red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors on the color wheel because if you're making a painting, you cannot make red, yellow, or blue paint by mixing other colors. Red, yellow, and blue paint are mixed together to make all the other colors. And that's why they're called the primary colors. And Ra just said, well, Dawn said at first that red, yellow, and blue energy rays are also the primary energy rays, which for some reason shouldn't be that surprising, because color is color is color, but in some ways it's like mind-boggling to me. All the color stuff has been mind-boggling to me because I know so much about color because of art. And then we get to the energy centers and their colors, and it's like, it's just all connected. It's all the same. And it's amazing. Red ray is the foundation. Orange ray, the movement towards yellow ray, which is the ray of self-awareness and interaction. Green ray is the movement through various experiences of energy changing, having to do with compassion and all-forgiving love, to the primary blue ray, which is the first ray of radiation of self regardless of any actions from others. Red, foundation. Yellow, self-awareness. Blue, self without actions from others. And that's why they're primary. Foundation, self-awareness, self. The green ray entity is ineffectual in the face of blockage from other selves. Blue ray entity is a co-creator. This may perhaps simply be a restatement of previous activity, but if you consider the function of the Logos as a representative of the infinite creator in effectuating the knowing of the creator by the creator, you may perhaps see the steps by which this is accomplished. Blue ray is ineffectual in the face of blockages from other selves. The blue ray entity is ineffectual in the face of blockage from other selves. What is that saying? I'm not sure if I'm understanding what that means exactly. So if you feel like you know what that means, let me know in the comments. Blue ray entity is the co-creator. The Logos as a representative of the infinite creator is effectuating the knowledge of the creator by the creator, and perhaps you may see the steps by which this may be accomplished. Blue ray entity is a co-creator. I think I'm getting confused because I'm thinking about like the ray itself, but this is talking about an entity that's like a green ray entity and a blue ray entity. So, I don't know. It's a little confusing. Let me know what you think. Could you tell me of the development of the social memory complex Ra from its beginning, and what catalyst is used to get where it is now in activation of rays? This question's too long. Oh no, the question does not demand a long answer. Dawn thought the question was too long. Ra thinks that it doesn't demand a long answer. For we who experience the vibratory densities upon that planetary sphere which you call Venus, were fortunate in being able to move in harmony with the planetary vibrations with an harmonious graduation to second, to third, and to fourth, and a greatly accelerated fourth density experience. We spent much time space in fifth density balancing the intense compassion we had gained in fourth density. The graduation again was harmonious, and our social memory complex, which had become most firmly cemented in fourth density, remained of a very strong and helpful nature. Our sixth density work and also accelerated because of the harmony of our social memory complex, so that we were able to set out as members of the Confederation to even more swiftly approach graduation to seventh density. Our harmony, however, has been a grievous source of naivety as regards with working with your planet. In other words, Humans are a pain in the ass. All the wonderful knowledge, love, compassion, and wisdom that Ra has experienced through its whole existence of being a physical mind, body, spirit complexes on Venus, all the way through fourth density, which is all about love, all the way through fifth density, which is all about love and compassion, and into sixth density, moving towards seventh density, putting the love and the wisdom together did not prepare them for the absolute shit show that humans happen to be. Our harmony has been a grievous source of naivety as regards working with your planet. Grievous, a grievous source. I'm sorry, Ra. I'm sorry that we're a pain in the ass. Okay. This was a long session, and I remember now warning everybody that session 41 is going to be a long session, and I forgot until I started reading it today. So let's review. Location doesn't matter. Ra can contact anywhere, but you have to feel, Dawn, Carla, and Jim needed to feel like the place was energetically good for them. Okay. Then we learned that the sun has free will, can co-create the nuances of our experiences in our solar system. Sixth density entities go to suns to become part of a reproduction experience of fusion, of making new light. And then the sun is also all the octaves, all the densities. All energy centers exist in potentiation before anything's created. We learned a lot about polymorphous dinoflagellates. Energy centers moving up through evolution. Talked a little bit more about that. Which I feel like we had gone over quite a bit of that before. So did Ra. And then we talked about the rotational speeds of energy centers. How you can have brilliant energy centers but still not be balanced. Ra tried to explain the difference between space-time and time-space, but I didn't understand it. Fasting is just one way of healing ourselves and getting rid of horrible stuff we don't want anymore, but you don't have to do it if you have strong will and faith. Red, blue, and yellow energy centers are primary, just like the colors are the primary. And the entities of Venus had a pretty easy time of it, it sounds. Until they met us. Now Ra's stuck with us until we fix our shit. See what you got yourself into there, Ra? Sorry, buddy. We're not going anywhere. You can tap out at any time. We promise. Promise we'll be sort of okay if you want to tap out and whiz on up to the seventh density. No hard feelings, Ra. if you just want to be like, adios, see you later, you know, hasta luego and all that stuff, no hard feelings. You tried. We're just a mess. All right, that was the end of session 41. It's a long one, people. It's a long one. Please comment, join the discussion. We have a discussion going on over the Discord channel too. Put the link in there for that. But the link, no matter how many times I fix it, it always changes the link. So if the link isn't working, you can always put a comment in there and I can put a new link up. So if you want to join the Discord and join the discussion about the raw material. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. If you haven't watched any of the other raw videos, and this is the first one you've seen, you should definitely watch them in order. And I think that's it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.